My name's Vinny. I'm from Backstage.
Hey,
It's a pleasure to meet you. How you doing today?
good. Is the Backstage, is it like formerly or the Backstage Weekly? Like, is it that publication or is it different?
So I mean, we've been around since 1960. We've gone through a couple different things. It used to be Backstage, two words. It was a print publication. Now it's just Backstage. It's a glossy magazine.
I'm just
It's
trying to
mostly like
decide if
a.
this is the same spot where like in 1999 you would submit a headshot to be in a student film.
Oh yeah, that's us. We are the
Great.
Backstage
Yes. Love
who
it. Love it. Love it.
you
Love it.
used
Love it.
back. Did you use Backstage back in the day?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Can you tell me and I always have to approach this cautiously, but can you tell me the most interesting job you ever got from Backstage? Hopefully you did get a job from
Yeah.
Backstage.
I think I got I don't think it was called Finding Neverland, but it was I did an AFI student film about something to do with Tinkerbell, something to do with the Neverlands, a play on Peter Pan.
Love that.
God, did I fly? Did she fly? I forget. I also I forget if this was through Backstage or not, but probably was. My first job was a USC student film with Rashida Jones, who was just an
Nice.
actor in it at the time too, um, called Roadside Assistance. Don't look it up. And yeah, yeah. So those are a couple I remember. Those are the two I remember, and I'm not sure what came from what, but yeah, I definitely that was I had about a couple years of yeah submitting through Backstage. It was very exciting times.
I love that. Well, happy we could help. I love I love hearing that we helped in your journey. In preparation for this type of stuff, I do look up, a lot of interviews done, past talks we've done with you, past times you've talked to Backstage, just to find something to sort of, find any connection between us or anything like that. And I did see that you told us Backstage in 2021 that you were someone who failed their driver's test when you were 16.
Oh yeah.
Uh, you were talking to somebody who also failed their driver's test when
Oh,
they were 16.
congratulations.
Very, yeah, exactly. It was a very formative moment for me. I think about
Same.
it a lot. This is
Yeah, yeah,
decades
yeah.
ago. So,
Same, same,
I
same.
am, to get to an actual question, is there anything about your sort of earliest setbacks in life that prepared you for life as an actor to this day?
Interesting. Um, Earliest setbacks is a great question. But no, I mean, I think being an actor takes a lot of patience. Even for myself, the phone never rings as often as I want it to, and then you have to have a lot of faith or just, I guess, an understanding of, make it less sort of, you know, prayerful, like have a lot of a healthy understanding and confidence of the boom and bust, the cycles of it. And I've certainly been around it long enough now to see the patterns and go, I think the phone's ringing. The phone should ring again. Just if history is any guide, this is this is cyclical. This will continue to be cyclical. Um, but other than that, other setbacks, there's literally the craft, and there's, any sort of pain you've ever felt is great grist for, great fodder for, you know, using it for, giving it to a pretend person in a pretend situation. But, and also not just in the momentary feeling as an actor, but in breaking down a story and breaking down a theme and just understanding of life, therefore understanding of a character and the world, of the worldview the storyteller's trying to convey, what you want to convey, what you think's interesting, what you think's less interesting, or maybe even harmful. And so it's all, I know that's a sort of very fuzzy answer. And I'm trying to think of anything more concrete, but nothing totally springs to mind. I mean, there's the stage fright. So getting up in front of the class is not all that different. And um, I guess I would say to that, you don't, in my experience, really get over that feeling. I still have that all the time. I think I don't have, I just think I have your average stage fright. Most people don't love speaking in front of a lot of people, except maybe you do after a few minutes and the nerves cool down, then it's fun and you're engaging with the crowd in some way or another. So I think, anyway,
No, perfect. I love I love a digression. And something you said sort of reminds me of something I find really interesting. You mentioned getting to used to the phones not ringing as much as often or anything like that. And when I look at this moment now with Nobody Wants This on Netflix, I was reading all the coverage and the profiles and stuff, and there's that sense of the Brody sons and people being happier back in the spotlight and stuff like that. But I think we had this very similar conversation when we talked to Brendan Fraser for The Whale. This sort of idea of people
mm-hmm.
being happy you're back, but you look at your resume and you didn't really go anywhere. You were never really gone. And I'm
Yeah.
I'm always very curious to ask an actor, from the inside looking out, what is your relationship to that response of like, oh, we missed you and but you were always there. You're always on our screens. What is your relationship to that reaction?
It's honestly, it's pretty great. I mean, I don't take any offense to it, put it that way. It's very nice. It's very gratifying. And I'm so happy people have found some of my work now. I'm very proud of the stuff I've done in the, last 20 years. Um, but I sure know the difference between a hit and not, and something that's not a hit, and the palpable difference and essentially the difference between a vast amount of people seeing your work and not, and most of it is the latter. So when something hits, it's very satisfying and it feels like, at least for me who's been doing it a long time, it feels like a result of all the work. It's related to everything I've done in the last 20 years. I didn't get this job because I wasn't working for 20 years and I didn't get this, and so yeah, it feels like they're still related, the work that's seen and not, because um, somebody's seen it, and also you grow, as an actor, you learn, um, and I don't mind it. It's also, listen, I mean, it's also pretty silly in the sense of, um, it's such a subjective industry in many ways. It's such a subjective art, and it's such a subjective, and then anyone has this, any filmmaker knows, any filmmaker wants to cast somebody and they can't, and the money says no, it's got to be X, Y, or Z. And then they go, all right, well, X won't do it. Why in the letter, meaning figuratively, a person, I'm sick of that person. That's not a color I want to paint with right now. It's everywhere. And they're like, yeah, that's why you got to use it. And it's a fight, and and it's very nice to be on a momentary upswing where perhaps more opportunity comes your way, perhaps doors that were closed open. And at the same time, it's also fucking ridiculous. But what are you going to do?
Love that. And
Meaning, just meaning that, like, yeah, but you were the same actor you were, a month ago, and real heads know. And I can say that for so many actors, but it's everyone's kind of chasing their tail. And I don't just mean I've heard, I think it's a cliche, like these executives are just worried about their jobs. And so they, it's not, it's the way it all works. Everyone wants the latest thing. And yeah, you got to fight to sort of cast someone original in anything. Anyone has to fight for that. And so I don't know. So, I mean, look, I'll take it. I'm used to it, the ups and downs, but it's all, I roll my eyes at it as well.
Absolutely. Well, I think it's fair to say that Nobody Wants This, the response to all of it, has been, immediate and positive, and then a lot of that has to do with the casting and the fact that you're in it, the fact that Kristen is in it, the chemistry between you. I do want to talk specifics about Nobody Wants This because a lot of things that our backstage readership are interested in are, the mechanics of rom-com acting and chemistry and all that stuff. And I want to start off by sort of pointing out a shot in the first episode. It's literally just a shot of you seeing Kristen as Joanne for the first time. It's just a I'm always interested in reaction shots like that. It's a look that says a lot. So as an actor, you're obviously doing that several times and you're trying to convey different things with a look. When it's something like that, how do you approach it and how do you like to work on it from take to take in terms of like you're saying this with a look?
It's so subtle that I don't find that there's all that much work to do, is the truth of it. There's not a lot of choreography involved. It's probably little. Where's your eye line? And oftentimes, I mean, in that scene in particular, I'll tell you a different art there, that I find harder is the art of having a conversation with background where they're not allowed to talk and you're supposed to be familiar with them. That is its own thing that I know. I recognize the movie so much. You see someone going through a party like, Johnny, good to see you. Hey, boy. Okay, I'll be there in a minute, blah, blah, blah. And you know that on the day they're like, and everyone can only nod because, of the strictures of contracts and they can't pay anyone else. So nobody's allowed to speak. And so you're, feigning familiarity in these and just and theoretically back and forth conversations with people who it's fun to engage with, but literally are not allowed to speak. So that's a whole art form. And I think the thing you're talking about, I think I was probably pretend speaking with someone and then looked away if I remember correctly. And that's his whole. I would say that is in a way a trickier dance, I believe. Then but anyways, the art of a look, I don't know. It's not very premeditated, I'll tell you that. It's a subtle thing and you try it a few ways and there's technicality involved, but normally it's not a romantic technicality. Normally it's just like look longer is probably what it is. Or, just the technicalities of when to glance and where to glance. And then, subtle direction of maybe more of a smile or maybe more of a longing or whatnot. But the truth is, and especially in, you're filming the pilot of something, you're not thinking this is the beginning of this great adventure for these characters and people are going to love, you got 20 minutes to do this and then you're going to get that scene and then you're going to go to lunch and it's just one little piece in the puzzle of the day and you go and you do it quick and then it's always a surprise what like resonates.
Absolutely. Just you mentioning, I love parts of acting that like no one would ever think of. The challenge of having to talk to people who aren't allowed to vocally respond to you. It reminds me of something else, that in any modern rom-com it has to navigate the fact that you have to include texting and because it's such a part of
Yeah,
modern
yeah,
romance,
yeah, yeah.
which is like
Hmm.
one of the least cinematic things ever.
Yeah,
So I'm curious from an acting
yeah.
perspective, like is it sort of the same thing where it's like it's mostly comes down to choreography? Like I can't imagine there's
How you
much.
text?
Yeah, like sort of how from an acting perspective, how do you make this feel cinematic and like it's worth showing?
To me that is more of a writer's concern primarily. I mean, you can direct it in certain ways. Do you want to have an insert shot of the phone and see the text, or do you want to have a bubble appear on the screen, of on the screen above the character's head? That's your director question. As an actor, you're really just typing. That's not so. I don't find that challenging. And then as a writer, I think that's the real challenge. Is like if we're going to set this in this world, how can we do this as little as possible or make it as engaging as possible? And then yeah, I don't find that. So I don't know. I also haven't done so much of it. Another day-to-day acting thing that I think is for me that a little trick I do is I find driving's a little tricky because because you're not driving. And I find that people in general, actors, my pet peeve is everyone makes way too much eye contact. The driver does not look at the road nearly enough. And if you're in a car for real, you can not do anything but glance occasionally at the passenger, but you're looking at the road unless you're stopped. And so I try to, when I'm acting and driving, keep my eyes on the road. And yeah, oftentimes the steering wheel is kind of locked. So because your car is like on a trailer, and so you don't have much give in that. So that's kind of hard. Um, anyways, now I'm digressing into that. But texting, I haven't had too much experience, and I that doesn't feel too challenging.
Yeah, it's the things that is, even if it's not a challenge, it's making it feel, I don't know, real. And in terms of,
Authentic.
making these
Yeah.
authentic, exactly.
Can we keep
Something,
going? Can I keep going on this road? Can I
oh,
say my pet
please,
peeves that
please,
aren't okay? I
I
don't like when
just,
they take
if
I
we spend the rest of our time listing the pet peeves,
great,
that would be totally
great.
fine with me.
I don't like when people take out the headrests in the front seat of cars
Mm,
to get the
hmm.
overshots. Um, that's silly to me. It's just like it pulls me out. I don't think it's necessary. I don't do it. Um, when somebody has a tray of coffees or suitcases that are too light, they fill the Starbucks cup up like one third, or the
Hmm.
suitcases are light. That's no go. Then you got to spend more acting. You got to spend more brain power on pretending the coffee's heavy than just like or the suitcase than just like having it heavy, and then you can actually do the scene.
I've always wondered why,
Um,
like, why not just put a beanbag in? Even if you can't put liquid for, consistency's
yeah,
sake, just put a
but you
beanbag or
can,
sand or something.
but the fact of the matter is you can put liquid in. Yeah. And then lastly, this is my last thing, and this is a
Please,
writerly thing. If you have a dog and somebody comes over to the house, the dog, two more things and I'm done.
please.
The dog is at the fucking door when the person comes to the door. That's a given. If they're going to jump on you, they're not jumping on you in the living room after you've said hellos and you've entered the kitchen. The dog is fucking scratching and barking and sniffing at the door, and that's where that interaction needs to take place. Always. Last thing I'll say, if there's kids in a scene and they're, below 10, certainly if they're below like 7, they're not letting you speak. Parents are not having the conversation while kids are quiet. The scene is now about them. And that's
Hmm.
okay. That's interesting. That's life. But like, they're not silently sitting there while you have a conversation. That's crazy. Anyways, I'm done, but I enjoy talking about that stuff.
Love that. I think I hope that people are taking notes. That is, you put those things in and you're halfway there. I love that. Even you mentioning the intricacies of it, it's something. It reminds me of something else you told us, about acting back in 2021, which is how much you enjoy blocking. You enjoy blocking a scene. You enjoy,
Mm,
you make
very
good creative
much.
decisions during blocking. I'm curious on Nobody Wants This. Did anything emerge from the blocking or anything like
Very,
that where you
very,
made it?
yeah, a ton, a ton. And it was, I would say I feel I had my bigger creative ideas in the blocking than I did in between action and cut. I had a lot of fun between action and cut, but I would say that the choices in a way that I feel I'm almost more proud of were some of the discussions beforehand and how like, and it can change so much. An example, and I don't know how well you remember it. It's okay if you don't, but I'll explain it. But like the there's a moment in the end of our date. I think it's episode 4 after we've had our date, and I'm like, "You're pulling away. What's the deal?" And she's like, "I want to tell you something, but it's hard." And then she goes, she's like, "Turn around," and I kind of don't get what she's getting at. And she goes, "Never mind, I'll turn around." And then she turns around and she tells me it all, and I'm standing there, and then in the end, as scripted, I think she sort of turns back around, and it didn't it felt okay, but as we're blocking it, I decided halfway through I'll come up behind her and bridge the gap and kind of put my hands on her shoulders and sort of be put and support her in that way. And it did so much. It was so effective. It was so effective of changing the dynamic of the scene, and it said so much wordlessly, so much. And I don't know. It's that kind of stuff that you can't really do that in the moment unless you're shooting very cinema verite style. You got to kind of hit your marks. But that's stuff that is so fun, and you're doing it while you're intellectualizing it at the same time, and you're sort of, you're half feeling it, but then you're half thinking about it and discussing it. And that's a space I really like, actually, creatively. That's a very fun space for me.
It's interesting, to hear all the things that, from that emerges the final product that looks natural and it looks real, but there's so much thought that goes into it. It's the work versus the end result that makes it look easy. That sort of, brings up this idea that a lot of conversations we have with actors at Backstage is it revolves around chemistry, and like what that
Hmm.
means. We've talked to actors who are like, chemistry isn't real. It's just acting. Other people are like, it's this, it's this. So, when nobody wants this is so built on chemistry. So, as
Hmm.
an actor, what what are your how do you see chemistry? Is it work? Is it natural? Is it something unexplainable? What is chemistry to you?
Well, to get it, I think it is not work. I think it's natural. I think if that's
Hmm.
casting, that is casting. That's what that is. And you can build familiarity, of course, and if there are characters that need to know each other well, we'll hang out as much as you can, and that'll really help that. But as far as chemistry goes, I do think that's just a naturally occurring thing, and I think it's mental and physical, and in as much as if you got to know someone more and therefore you liked them more, and your familiarity and your affection for each other bred a sort of chemistry that wasn't there. That's something, I suppose, and I could see that being the case. But in general, it is. I do think it's this ephemeral thing where people, it's like, your musical notes, and some harmonize together and some are dissonant. And but look, I think most good actors have chemistry with each other. It just depends. The roles have to be right. I mean, even Kristen and I, we've worked together before and really enjoyed each other. And both of the things we'd done previous to this were romantic, but much more sinister. One more so than the other, but they both had like darker undertones. And and while we got along great, we were great scene partners, no one really was commenting on the chemistry. These it's the way these characters are now set up. So for us to root for them and root for them together, that really allows our chemistry as we have it to shine. And so I don't know, it is this alchemy that is, I suppose, hard to describe, but is a real fun. That's one of the joys. I mean, casting is so fun. The casting process. It's like, it's one of the most sort of fun and creative. I think one of the most fun creative elements of this business. And yeah, I mean, everyone loves the stories of. I'm getting off topic a little, but of like who passed on that famous role and what would that have been like? Oh my God, fucking Sylvester Stallone would have been Beverly Hills Cop, like um um but it's a joyful thing. But yeah, I can't totally explain it.
Absolutely. So, I'm sure you've been asked all week, all day, all month, how much you know about season two, all that kind of stuff. But something I saw you say that was really interesting is, you went into the office, they're writing it right now, they're writing season two, and you saw the whiteboard and you're like, oh, they don't I'm not part of this process right now. They're
Yeah.
making it up as
Yeah.
we speak.
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting. As an actor between seasons, I'm curious. I'm sure you have thought. I think Noah would do this. I think this is where Noah would
Yeah.
go. But sort of letting that go and putting it in someone else's hands. What is your relationship to that? Of like, where does the character live for you between seasons, and then how do you sort of meld that with what someone else decides the character is going to do beyond what you might assume they're going to do.
Yeah, I mean, I'll have thoughts on their thoughts. In general, I'm blissfully unaware now. I kind of don't want to know because they seem to have a well-oiled machine going. And if I know, then I'm going to have to get to work in one way or another. If I know and I like it, then I'm going to go, great. All right, let me think about, okay, now what? Now I'm going to have to start coming up with ideas. Or most likely, I both like it and have some concerns. And then my concerns, I'd start to worry and think, well, let me think about that. And it's, in my head right now, it's all perfect and I don't have to do anything. And also, it just depends. This is such, you know, this show is, even though it's a real group effort and there's a writer's room and we have a bunch of talented people, it really is Erin's voice. And so it's her story to tell. And I don't think, especially at this point, um, I don't want to impose myself on it. And sometimes I do. And sometimes and listen, when I ultimately see it, um, I will have thoughts. I will have no shortage of thoughts, and there'll be minute thoughts and broad thoughts, and thoughts on the day, and thoughts in the moment, and thoughts well before. But still, for now, I'm very content to let them do their thing, and yeah, I just don't think they need the help right now. If I thought they did, I would try to barge in there and do what I could, but I just think they have all the manpower they need, and I'm gonna let them cook.
So, as we sort of come to the end here, I do want to ask a bit more of a general question. I saw you mention, not to just keep throwing your own quotes back at you, but, I
Great.
saw you mention to the New York Times you matured as an actor, and that means, personal and specifically about the craft. And you sort of mentioned you have learned some tricks, some shortcuts that work over the years. So is there a most well used acting shortcut, acting trick that you sort of go to most often?
Uh, I mean, this could just have to do with literally getting older and slower, but like, um, stillness. Stillness is very powerful, and I love economy. And I like that in anything. I like it in writing. I like that. And I love cursing. But if you don't say fuck every second, when you do say it, it has real power. I like it in music, in everything. I'm a big fan of the art of economy and the effectiveness of economy. And acting is no different. And so being still and just is has its own charisma and its own power, and then you can really not offset that, but then it also makes movement so much more impactful. um and yeah, I used to be much more restless, and in many ways I sort of am. I'm still a fidgety person, but when I can, and even in this show, had I done this show 10 years earlier, certainly 20 years earlier, it's hard for me to watch the OC now because I'm so hyperactive and so hyperverbal, and I just feel so much more now confident and content to sort of sit there and you know, let it come to me. And it's incredibly fun. It's incredibly fun to use as well. It's a joy. Whatever. There's such a power in it. So yeah, stillness.
Amazing. Well, Adam, this was an absolute pleasure. If you think of any more pet peeves,
Likewise.
please, send it to us,
Okay,
email to
great.
us, whatever. I love hearing it. But awesome. This
Great.
was this was incredible. It was such a
Okay,
joy to
Vinny.
talk
Thank
to
you.
you. And
Thank you
I
so
think
much. Likewise. This was fun, and this
absolutely.
was this was fun, and this was different, which I appreciate.
Oh, that's all we want to hear because I know how many conversations you've been having today, yesterday, and beyond. So thank you so much, and hope to talk to you again soon.
Okay, likewise. Hope so.